It all started with a letter. The envelope was unmarked, and the address was handwritten. The handwriting trembled, as if the author was in a hurry or afraid. Inside was a flash drive and a piece of paper. If you dare, take a look. But then don't say you didn't warn me. At the time, I thought it was someone's stupid joke. But now I regret that I didn't throw it in the trash right away. The flash drive contained 3 videos. First, a room with green wallpaper, a clock with stop hands on the wall. The masked man was leaning over a table with a map of the city on it. He methodically marked the districts with crosses, crossing out the streets. Voiceover, they're already here. The next ones are your neighborhood. The second video, night shooting of the forest. The camera was shaking, the cameraman was running, he was being chased. Suddenly, the light of a lantern picked out a sign on a tree, an inverted cross wrapped in barbed wire. Scream. The camera dropped and the recording was interrupted. The third video was about me. I was leaving the store, which was flooded with neon buckets. The date in the corner is yesterday. I pulled out the flash drive as if it was on fire. But an hour later, I received a text message. Now you are part of the game. You're shooting the next video. I thought someone was bullying me. Maybe colleagues. Or an ex who's still angry about the divorce. But that night, I woke up to the smell of burning. Smoke was billowing from under the bedroom door. I rushed to the window. The yard was empty, but there was an inscription on the garage wall. It's time to start. The next day, I found a box in the car. Inside is an old cassette recorder and a map. On the tape, a synthesized voice gave instructions. Go to the intersection of Elms and 9th. Wait for the signal. Take it all off. I called the police, but they just shrugged their shoulders. Maybe it's a prank. Call me if there are any threats. The signal came at 3:14 a.m. The TV turned on by itself, showing jackal interference. Then an image appeared, a room with a girl tied to a chair. She has a sign on her chest that says, "Save me before dawn." On the wall behind is Elm Street, 9th. I grabbed the keys. It could have been staged, but her eyes, they begged. The intersection was empty. The flashlight was flashing, illuminating the phone booth. The phone was ringing in it. I picked up the phone. Do you see the truck with the green body? The voice was the same as on the tape. Follow him. Don't come any closer. The truck started moving slowly. We drove for an hour until we turned into an abandoned factory. The driver got out and lit a cigarette. I hid behind a concrete fence, filming on my phone. He opened the body. Inside there are cages and people, bound and gagged. The girl from the video was among them. I was shaking, but I started calling the police. Suddenly, the truck took off, and 2 men in black balaclavas came around the corner. Great, one of them said, grabbing me by the neck, that I was pushed into a windowless van. The air smelled of drugs and sweat. The girl from the video was sitting opposite. Her face was covered in bruises. Why are you doing this? I hissed. Not us. She pointed to a collar with a blinking LED. They're doing experiments. Someone pays them to take away our suffering. The van stopped. We were taken to an underground garage, the walls of which were plastered with photos of the victims. Hundreds of faces, hundreds of seasons of this game. A man in a suit with a cameo on his shoulder came out of the elevator. Welcome to the reality show for the elite. Your fears are our currency. We were taken to our rooms. Mine is a camera with a bed and a screen. There are rules on the wall. Don't try to remove the collar. Complete the tasks. The audience will decide when you die. The first task came an hour later. Get the knife out of the body in the next room. I went in. A man was lying on the floor with a knife in his chest. He was still breathing. The message on the screen reads, he will die in 3 minutes. The knife is your key. His eyes begged to kill faster. Blood oozed from the man's wound, pulsing in time with his wheezing. I fell to my knees, trying to figure out how to hold the handle. His fingers suddenly gripped my jacket. Do it, quickly. He exhaled in bubbles of scarlet foam. The knife went deeper than it seemed. I pulled, feeling the blade scrape against my ribs. Her body jerked, and a groan escaped her throat. Finally, the blade came free with a wet slurp. The screen blinked. Well done. Now cut off his finger. No. I threw the knife at the wall. The system did not appreciate the riot. The collar burned my neck with a discharge until I fell to the floor. The voice on the speaker hissed. The game is playing according to our rules. I had to go back to the body. The finger is thin with a wedding ring. I closed my eyes, cut. The bone cracked. The door opened. There was a phone and a note on the table in the hallway. call your mother. Tell her you love her. This is the last time." I dialed the number. She picked up the phone on the second ring. "Hello? Son, where are you?" "Mom," the voice broke. The caller was electrocuted. I screamed, dropping my phone. "In the tube. What happened?" "Answer me." The screen showed a new task. "Break her heart. Tell her that she is to blame for her father's death." I suffocated. "My father died in an accident when my mother insisted on an overnight trip. She has been treated for depression for years." You killed him," I gasped, feeling my mouth burn with bitterness. Silence. Then a soft moan, as if she had been hit. The phone dropped. The screen lit up with applause. "The audience is thrilled. Your rating is growing." The door at the end of the corridor opened. "There's a girl from the van, now with a bandaged arm. They'll make you destroy yourself," she whispered. "But there is a way out. Kill the operator." She handed me a screwdriver hidden in a blindfold. The girl disappeared into the darkness of a hallway, and I hid the screwdriver in my sleeve. A new task flashed on the screen. "Go outside. Meet your audience." The garage was illuminated by floodlights. There was a chair in the middle of the empty space, and on it was a blind old woman in a nightgown. Her hands were shaking as she hugged the photo, me as a child in my father's arms. "Mom," I blurted out. She raised her head, bleary eyes searching for the source of the sound. "Son, is it really you?" They said, "You're dead." My legs gave out. The organizers found her in a nursing home, brought her here to play their sadistic theater. A voice over the speaker drowned out my breathing. "Show me what you can do for your family. Kill her, or she will die in agony." A man came out of the shadows with a knife, holding the blade to his mother's throat. His face was familiar to me, the doctor from the clinic where she was treated. "The choice is yours," he grinned, "and we will provide realism." I stepped forward, clutching the screwdriver. But Mom suddenly jumped up, grabbing the knife from the doctor. Her movements were sharp, precise. "I'm sorry, son," her voice sounded alien cold, "but the audience pays for real emotions." She rushed to the camera, cutting the cameraman's throat. Blood splattered on the lens. "Did you think I was weak?" She turned to me, a bloody knife in her hand. "I created this show to get you back. Have you always loved games?" The world swam. As a child, after my father's death, I locked myself in a room, acting out violent scenes with dolls. Mom called it a phase. "You've become boring," she approached. "But now you're my boy again." Armed men entered behind her. Not the show's guards, but her personal guards. "The choice is simple." She handed me a knife. "Join, or die like your father." I stood there clutching the knife she handed me. Her eyes, the same ones that had once comforted me after nightmares, now shone with cold excitement. The guards surrounded us, fingers on the triggers. "Well, son." She'd beckoned me to the camera, where the dying cameraman was wheezing in a pool of blood. "Show them whose blood you are." Suddenly, there was a groan in the corner of the garage. The girl from the van, the one with the bandaged arm, crawled out from behind the crates. Her face was pale, and the bandage was soaked in red. "They're not actors," she exhaled, pointing at the cages. "My brother, he was killed yesterday." The mother laughed, brandishing the knife. "You signed the contract." The girl pulled a crumpled piece of paper out of her pocket. "Children's photography, she and a boy about 10 years old. On the back, do you remember when we played here? They burned him alive." My heart skipped a beat. This place is an old factory where a warehouse burned in childhood. My father said that the children died there. "You lied." I turned to my mother. "You said your father died in an accident." "He died trying to save them." She kicked the photo. "The fireman is an idiot." The girl screamed, throwing a piece of brick at her mother. The guards fired. The bullet pierced her shoulder, but she managed to push me towards the cages. "Run," she croaked, shoving the key into my hand. "In the third cage, your father." "The world has stopped." "Father, alive," the mother growled, throwing the knife. The blade bit into the wood next to my head. I rushed to the cages, ignoring the screams. The third cage is littered with rags. Below them is a man with a gray beard, wearing glasses with broken lenses. "Son," he held out his hand, fingers crooked from burns. The guards surrounded us. The mother stepped forward, her face contorted with rage. "Now you're all going to die." But then there was an explosion. The garage gates collapsed, and the police with the sheepdogs rushed in. The mother screamed, hiding the knife behind her back. "It's filming. We're not doing anything." She was knocked down. My father hugged me, and I smell smoke and medicine. The girls smiled, bleeding profusely. I called them when I stole the phone. The police bustled around searching the garage while the paramedics carried out the father on a stretcher. His hand was shaking in mine, as if he was afraid I would disappear. My mother, in handcuffs, screamed that it was all staged, that I was crazy. But her voice was drowned out by the barking of dogs sniffing out blood under the flagstones. The girl, her name was Alice, was loaded into a separate car. Before the doors slammed shut, she managed to whisper, "They're everywhere. Don't trust uniforms." I nodded, not understanding, until the detective in the rumpled jacket led me to the van. "Let's go to the police station. We'll give evidence." But on the way, he suddenly turned into a country lane. Something familiar flashed in his eyes, cold calculation. "You knew," I said, gripping the doorknob. "You're in league with her." He took out his gun without taking his eyes off the road. "She was paying for her silence. But now you've ruined the business." The van skidded to a stop at the edge of the cliff. Outside the window is the dead of night and the roar of the river below. The detective pushed me towards the exit. "Or I'll shoot my dad in the hospital." I ran along the cliff, rocks falling under my feet. The shot whistled past his ear. He tripped over a root and rolled down, scratching his hands on the rocks. The water closed over his head, and the cold froze his lungs. He emerged under the bridge, clinging to a snag. Sirens wailed upstairs. Other cops, real ones? Or his accomplices? I got to the highway and stopped the truck. The driver, a woman with a snake tattoo on her neck, nodded silently. The cabin smelled of coffee and guns. "Where to?" "What is it?" she asked, looking in the mirror. "To the hospital. I need to go to my dad." She grinned, pulling out her phone. "You got into a lot of shit." The hospital was greeted with bright light and the smell of antiseptic. The guard at the father's room turned out to be the same doctor with a knife. When he saw me, he reached for the syringe. "Your mother sends her regards." I hit him with a fire extinguisher. The glass of the door shattered, and the alarm went off. The father, who was tied to an N4 drip, groaned. "Run. They will change you, as they change me." A green liquid was oozing out of a syringe on the floor. The doctor wheezed, crawling towards the alarm button. I pulled the needle out of my father's hand and picked him up on my shoulder. Alice was waiting at the back door. Her arm was bandaged artistically. "I knew you'd come back." She tossed me the keys to the truck. "Let's go." Until they found, but the engine wouldn't start. Two men wearing balaclavas and carrying batons came out of the darkness. Alice fired the gun she stole from the cop. One fell, the other rushed towards us. "Get in." She pushed me into the cab, jumping behind the wheel. We crushed the gate, driving onto a deserted highway. My father was moaning in the back seat, and I was trying to stop the blood from flowing from his vein. "Where to now?" I asked, feeling reality creep away. Alice took out a flash drive from her pocket, the one with the first video. "Everything is here. Contracts, transfers, votes. We'll post it. Everyone will know." But her laptop screen went blank. They sent us a link, live stream. The mother in the cell, with a black eye, was smiling at the camera. "Son, you're still in the game. Choose, her or the father." On the table in front of her is Alice's brother, alive. The next frame is of a ward where a nurse injects her father with poison. The screen went blank, leaving an echoing silence in the truck. Alice gripped the steering wheel, so hard that her knuckles turned white. My father was wheezing in the back seat, his fingers clutching at my wrist. "Don't believe her, she's lying." But I've seen it before. My mother could fake videos and hire actors. But the tremor in Alice's brother's voice. She was real. "We need a plan." Alice took out a pistol. "Check the clip." "They're in the old water tower. That's her headquarters." "How do you know?" I asked, still doubtful. "My brother left marks." She pointed to the crosses drawn near the tower on the map. He studied to be a cartographer. "We left my father in an abandoned church by the roadside, hidden under the altar. The priest, Alice's friend, swore to protect him. The tower towered over the forest, rusty beams creaking in the wind. There are 2 guards with machine guns at the entrance." Alice nodded at the ventilation shaft. "I'll distract them. You get inside." She fired into the air, and the guards ran after her. I squeezed through the narrow opening, scraping my back against the ragged metal. It smelled of oil and chemicals inside. The voices came from above. "He's coming," his mother said. "Weakling. I always chose my family." I climbed the stairs, each step rattling like a heartbeat. Alice's brother was sitting in the control room, tied to a chair. He wears an explosive belt on his chest. "Hi, son." The mother turned the camera to me. "Choose red wire. He lives, blue wire. Your father." Alice burst through the door, her gun pointed at her mother. But the guards were already aiming at the back. "Don't move," Mother shouted. "Or is he?" Alice's brother coughed and frothed on his lips. I realized the poison was already in him. The mother smiled. "Time's up." The explosion thundered from below. The tower shook, the glass was blown out by the shock wave. It was the priest and his father who blew up the generator. I rushed to my brother, ripping out the wires at random. The timer stopped at 0:01. "Get down." Alice pushed me under the table, shooting at her mother. The bullet hit the camera, sparks showered like fireworks. The mother fell, grabbing Alice by the throat. I hit her with a fire extinguisher, and the bone cracked under the impact. The guards fled, and the tower collapsed. We dragged my brother down while the beams were falling all around. Outside, my father was waiting in the truck, his eyes saying things I was afraid to understand. When the smoke cleared, the mother was lying on the floor, her blood mixing with glass fragments. Alice came up to me, her face suddenly distorted. Her features began to float like molten wax. "You did it," she said in her mother's voice. "You're me now." I recoiled, but the mirror on the wall reflected not my face, but hers. Wrinkles, cold eyes, bloody lips. Behind her, Alice crumbled to dust, and her brother and father froze like dolls with glass eyes. The hospital, the police, the explosions, it was all a room. A room with green wallpaper, where the clock still showed the stop time. There was a knife on the table, and on the screen was me, repeating the phrase, "Save me before dawn." His mother came through the door, carrying a tray of cookies. "Son, stop playing. Dad will be back from work soon." It was snowing outside the window. The year is 2003. I'm 7, and there's a torn teddy bear on the floor, without eyes. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any new chilling stories. Your comments and theories inspire us to dig deeper into the darkest corners of reality. And now a question for you. If you found a secret room in your house, what would you do first? Write the answers below, and take care of yourself. After all, it's better not to open some doors. Thank you for staying with us in this darkness. Until the next meeting in the silence of midnight. New Moon.